A UN report chastises Chile's government for extreme human rights abuses, but President Piñera escapes a censure motion. After gaining a massive majority in Britain's election, Boris Johnson goes off to see the Queen and form a new government. He called the victory an earthquake. And the worst power cuts in South Africa since 2008, but Eskom promises it won't be a Black Christmas. Hello and welcome to Telesur English. I am Stefania Bravo. This is from the South. Protests in Chile have reached their 56th day after the lower house rejected a move to censure President Sebastián Piñera on Thursday over allegations he failed to safeguard human rights during weeks of unrest. Still, the demonstrators continue to resist peacefully despite police firing water cannons, live ammunition, tear gas, and rubber bullets against them. Protests began in mid-October over a hike in metro fares. However, anti-riot police have violently repressed the strikers, with thousands injured and at least 352 Chileans losing partial or total vision. A mission from the UN Human Rights Commission that visited Chile released a report that criticized the police handling of demonstrators. The report found that the armed forces behaved in a fundamentally repressive manner, resulting in serious abuses, including unlawful killing and torture. They highlighted that official Chilean figures of more than 4,900 people injured in the protests were disputed and that other sources had far higher numbers.
We have found that the overall management of assemblies by the police was carried out in a fundamentally repressive manner. The police used non-lethal force when demonstrators were peacefully, and apparently they did it with the aim of dispersing the demonstrations and preventing participants from arriving at the assembly point.
Our correspondent in Santiago, Paula Drachnik, has the latest.
This is one more international report that condemns the Chilean state for these violations of human rights. The UN report doesn't use the word systematic to describe the abuse, but it does call it extreme. That is to say, it notes that these abuses have increased dramatically. One of the specific issues raised is a request to the Chilean authorities to stop using shotguns firing pellets. They also give guidelines for the use of tear gas. They say this should only be used in exceptional circumstances and should never be fired directly at people, and also that it should never be used near health facilities or educational institutions. These images we've seen in recent days of tear gas being used with a lot of people injured show that it has been used very indiscriminately. When we've asked for official information on how much has been spent on tear gas, it was made clear that thousands of dollars have been invested in purchasing and importing tear gas canisters. There have been lots of reactions to the report on social media, where many people are also commenting on yesterday's censure motion against President Sebastián Piñera, which did not pass in the Congress. People are saying that these intentional reports confirm the abuse of human rights, yet the president is not going to assume any responsibility. 8 opposition lawmakers voted against the motion to censure President Piñera. In the afternoon, another big demonstration is being held in Plaza Italia.
Delegates of the Alba TCP member states are in Havana, Cuba for the 17th summit of the regional bloc. Thursday arrivals included the Executive Secretary of Alba TCP, David Choquehuanca of Bolivia, and Venezuelan Foreign Minister Jorge Arreaza. Upon arrival, Arreaza spoke to Telesur about the importance of the regional integration bloc at this critical time in Latin America. The summit is being held on the 15th anniversary of Alba's foundation.
And the people will be present through various ways. I know that the prime ministers and presidents who will be meeting here on Saturday in Havana are evaluating a plan to propel the Bolivarian alliance at this time of complexity in Latin America, as we are seeing a rebellion against neoliberalism in the countries of South America and also in some Caribbean countries. We will see how the alliance will strengthen more than ever. We will see how Alba will deal with fundamental issues. For example, the economic issue, the commercial issue, the zones of commercial interchange in other terms, that involves the commercial treaty of the people, which President Evo Morales of Bolivia introduced some years ago. We are going to improve the political multilateral coordination. a better cultural union. Now we have a Bolivarian alliance. Right now we are seeing Bolivarianism and Martianism in the countries of our America.
Our correspondent Nayara Tardo has more from Havana.
This Saturday here in Havana, the 17th summit of ALBA, the Bolivarian Alliance of the Peoples of Our America, will be taking place. Since Thursday night, some of the delegations began to arrive. The Secretary General of ALBA, David Choquehuanca, along with the Venezuelan Foreign Minister Jorge Arriaza, were among the first to arrive. Jorge Arriaza told the media it was especially important to defend ALBA and keep it active, given recent events in the region. This, of course, will be one of the main items on the agenda on Saturday morning, as the representatives analyze and discuss the current situation in Latin America and the Caribbean, and the importance of further developing integration in the region. The summit will agree a final declaration, and in the afternoon, in the University of Havana, there will be an event to celebrate the 15th anniversary of the founding of the alliance. ALBA was, you will remember, founded in 2004 on the initiative of the leaders of the Bolivarian and Cuban revolutions, Hugo Chavez and Fidel Castro. That is why these summits are held on the 14th of December every year to mark that anniversary.
It was Nayara Tardo from Cuba. The Royal Bank of Canada has entered agreements to sell all its banking operations in the Eastern Caribbean. This includes its banks in Antigua, Dominica, Montserrat, St. Lucia, and St. Kitts and Nevis. Head of RBC Caribbean Banking, Rob Johnston, said indigenous banks within the region will buy out the institution. Financial terms of the transaction were not disclosed. In Bolivia, the party of Evo Morales, the movement towards socialism, is preparing for an important meeting this weekend to discuss its plans after last month's coup. Freddy Morales reports from La Paz.
Bolivia's movement towards socialism party will be holding a meeting in the department of La Paz on Saturday. Its main objective is the strengthening and restructuring of this political party, which is the majority party in Bolivia, as a result of the recent electoral processes held in recent years. This meeting has been convoked by the departmental directive of La Paz of the movement towards socialism and will be held in a province of this La Paz in Laja. More than 20 organizations have been convoked, not only the members of the MAS and its party affiliates, but also social organizations and departmental unions. Some mayors and other authorities from La Paz will also participate in this event. The event's announcement says that this is being held in rejection of the coup carried out by a sector of the fascist right wing, along with badly named National Council for Democracy, CONADE, which in reality are dictatorial and purely fascist. The meeting is also being held for the constant acts of political persecution and vulnerability of the political and union and civil rights. At the same time, this is being held for the discrimination which has targeted the indigenous class and original peoples throughout the country.
We thank Freddy Morales for that report. Last Christmas, the U.S. blockade against Venezuela meant that many families could not celebrate Christmas in the traditional style. This year, the government has been working to overcome the problem by boosting local meat production.
Early morning and the Tazón cold store in Caracas is already full of trucks. Inside, tons of pork produced in Venezuela ready for distribution to communities across the country.
I'm proud that this Christmas we will all get our legs of pork and our Christmas festivities will be complete.
27,000 tons of this typical Christmas favorite, marinated pork, will be delivered around the country for just $1 a piece. 95% of the value is subsidized by the government. In 2018, the US blockade against Venezuela meant that some of the meat, which was imported, never reached people's Christmas dinners.
We say to all those who want us to fail, those with malicious interests or capitalist interests, sometimes supported by the fascist far right, but especially by the North American empire. To all those promoting this economic war, we say, you have not and will not be able to defeat us.
The trucks set off on their journey. In Caracas alone, 780,000 families will benefit. In the parish of Jardines del Valle, people have been waiting since early.
In spite of the blockade and the obstacles which they've put in our way, we the Venezuelan people have our food, our presents, and will have a happy Christmas, whether they like it or not.
My message to the world is that we want peace, we want to be happy, and we want this war by many countries to end.
70-year-old Carlos Perez was born in this community. As well as his pork, he's bought other Christmas supplies at subsidized prices from the local food committee or CLAP.
This is great for us. This Christmas we'll have a bit more than last year, and we think it will continue to get better. It's a big help for us who are poor and in need, because it's very cheap.
This program is part of the economic recovery plan developed by the government of Nicolas Maduro in collaboration with local producers.
Coming up after the break, U.S. President Donald Trump congratulates Boris Johnson on his victory in the British election. Stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. The people of Britain are coming to terms with the biggest Conservative election victory since 1987. The Prime Minister Boris Johnson went to see the Queen on Friday, the traditional step before forming a new government. He called the result an earthquake. His hardline pro-Brexit stance has given the Conservative Party a huge majority of 80 seats in Parliament. The Labour Party, standing on a platform of radical change, lost 59 constituencies to end up with 203 seats in Parliament, while the Conservative Party gained 47, giving it 365 seats. Labour lost many of its traditional working-class strongholds in the North and the Midlands, where the vote to leave the European Union had been strong in 2016. The Liberal Democrats, who ran on an anti-Brexit platform, did not perform well. Party leader Jo Swinson lost her seat to the Scottish National Party. Prime Minister Boris Johnson now has a clear mandate to take Britain out of the European Union in January. The United States President Donald Trump has congratulated Boris Johnson on his victory in the British election. He suggested it should be a warning to the Democratic Party in the U.S. and especially its progressive wing.
I want to congratulate Boris Johnson on a terrific victory. I think that might be a harbinger of what's to come in our country. It was last time. I'm sure people will be thrilled to hear that, but a lot of people will be, actually. A very big percentage of people, because this was a tremendous victory last night. And it's very interesting. The final votes are being tallied right now, but the numbers are tremendous. So I want to congratulate. He's a friend of mine. It's going to be a great thing for the United States also, because it means a lot of trade, tremendous amount of trade. They want to do business with us so badly. Under the European Union, it was very, very hard for them to do business with us.
Jeremy Corbyn says he will not step down as leader of the Labour Party until it has chosen a successor. The morning after the election, he reflected on the results.
Well, I've done everything I could to lead this party, done everything I could to develop its policies, and since I became leader, the membership has more than doubled, and the party has developed a very serious, radical, yes, but serious and fully costed manifesto. And I've received more personal abuse than any other leader has ever received by a great deal of the media. Now, that happens all the time. I will talk to our national executive about what we do in the future. I called for last night a period of reflection in the party, and obviously the ruling body of the party, our national executive, will decide what process we follow then for the election of a successor to me. But I am quite prepared, and I was elected to do so, to lead the party until that takes place. If you analyse the coverage that's made of the Labour Party, you analyse the coverage that's made of me, you're looking at in the 80% and above of negative, hostile, or frankly just downright abuse of individuals, and character assassination and constant attacks on me and my family and others. I will be the MP for Islington North, and very proud to be the MP for Islington North, and I will continue to do the campaigning work I've done all my life on issues of social justice, on issues of housing, and issues of human rights around the world, and of course of environmental sustainability, because that is what I've spent my life doing, and that's what I'll spend the rest of my life doing.
The other big winner in Thursday's election was the Scottish National Party, which won 48 out of the 59 seats in Scotland, a gain of 14. Its leader warned Boris Johnson that she would now insist on a new referendum on Scottish independence.
So to the Prime Minister, let me be very clear. This is not simply a demand that I or the SNP are making. It is the right of the people of Scotland, and you, as the leader of a defeated party in Scotland, have no right to stand in the way. In an independent Scotland, we will always get the governments we vote for. We will have full control of the powers and the levers needed to build a truly fair and a more prosperous country. We can take our place as an equal partner with our closest friends in the rest of the UK and across Europe and the world. The people of Scotland have spoken. It is time now to decide our own future. Thank you very much indeed.
One huge result from the north of Ireland was the victory of Sinn Féin candidate John Finucane in North Belfast. Sinn Féin unseated the Democratic Unionist Party's Nigel Doods. Doods is the deputy leader of the Democratic Unionist Party and the party spokesperson at Westminster. This was a huge result for the nationalist cause in Ireland. Parties in favour of a united Ireland now have more seats in the north than those who want to remain part of the United Kingdom. And earlier on, we spoke to Telesur's political analyst Tariq Ali about the election. Tariq explained the importance of the nationalist vote in Scotland and that the United Kingdom could split under the government of Boris Johnson.
Before this election campaign started, there was a very interesting survey of Conservative Party members. And the Conservative Party members were asked, would you rather push through Brexit, even if it meant a split in the Conservative Party, Scotland going independent, and a united Ireland? And a large majority said yes. Well, we've seen a split in the Conservative Party. It's now solidly a right-wing party. All the centre Tories have been expelled. It's going to be a very right-wing government. We've seen Scotland voting in overwhelming numbers for the SNP, and the SNP is now going to push and push and push for another referendum in Scotland. And thirdly, once all the untruths come out in relation to what is happening in Ireland, whether there's going to be a new border, etc., there will be growing pressure over the next few years for a unified Ireland. So ironically, this victory for the right-wing Conservatives under Boris Johnson might result in ending the British Union, the United Kingdom as we know it.
Coming up after the break, the 9th summit of the African, Caribbean and Pacific Group of States concludes in Kenya. Stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. The 9th Summit of the African, Caribbean and Pacific Group of States, or ACP, has concluded in Nairobi, Kenya. This year's theme was a transformed ACP committed to multilateralism. The summit ended with finalizations of the post-Cotonou negotiations, as well as revisions to the Constitutive Act and the Georgetown Agreement. Meanwhile, Angola's Georges Rebelo Pinto Chikoti has been selected as the new Secretary General for the period 2020-2025. The tenure of the current senior management team expires on February 28, 2020. On behalf of CARIFORUM, Barbados Prime Minister Mia Amor Motley urged the ACP group to prioritize climate change and immigration, which requires urgent attention.
That we cannot continue the process of development as contemplated in the post-independence era with the vulnerability that we have in a climate crisis world without appreciating that there needs to be special mechanisms for financing for resilience and adaptation. And finally, I ask us equally to recognize that as a grouping, the ACP ought to be the human community that brings a human face to handle the fractious issue of migration in today's world. We have allowed the movement of capital, but we seem not to like each other enough to allow the movement of people. This requires a human and humane approach.
Former Prime Minister Abdelmadjid Tebboune has won Algeria's widely unpopular presidential election. Tebboune won 58.15% of the vote, trouncing his 4 fellow contenders with no need for a runoff. The election was marred by unrest as protesters condemned the 5 political candidates who all served under the 2-decade rule of ousted President Abdelaziz Bouteflika. Protesters took to the streets against the vote with the local branch of the National Independent Electoral Authority in the city of Boura set on fire. Meanwhile, peaceful protesters rallied in the capital Algiers amid arrest and police repression. They remain resolute that they do not support the election.
This gang imposed 5 wolves on us and imposed their own president, and everyone rejects him. But we will stay in the street peacefully and fight until the fall of this corrupt regime. And God willing, he will not become the president chosen by this gang. And God willing, we hope for freedom and independence for the country. And we hope for immediate victory for this country.
Thousands of jubilant Bougainville residents were joined by Papua New Guinea's Prime Minister in celebrating a vote to secede from the country. Nearly 98% chose independence in a 3-week-long voting period, which saw a strong 85% turnout. They gathered in Arawa for an official post-vote ceremony where groups danced and drummed bamboo pipes in traditional dress. Papua New Guinea's parliament must still ratify the outcome. South Africa has experienced the worst electricity cuts since 2008 as the country's only power supplier battles to keep the lights on. Eskom announced scheduled rotational overcuts would take place to keep the national power grid on or face total collapse. As our correspondent Matua Maleachi reports, the South African government promises it won't be a black Christmas.
It's been a frustrating week for South Africans without electricity. Power supplier Eskom resorted to scheduled power cuts to ease pressure on the national grid, but this has put the country in a position that makes it vulnerable to a recession. Big and small businesses suffered.
We don't know what the future will bring, but it's very daunting, I think, for any business, especially if you are dependent on power as we are.
Government could not offer anything beyond an apology until Tuesday afternoon.
What has also come out as a great concern is that there has been a measure of sabotage that has led to the loss of, during this period, of 2,000 megawatts, where someone in the Eskom system disconnected one of the instruments that finally led to one of the boilers tripping and us losing as much as 2,000. I think it was 2 boilers.
The sabotage claim by government adds to the different reasons given by the cash-strapped power supplier. Earlier, it was pronounced the more regular and longer power cuts were due to wet coal caused by the persistent rains in the past week. But locals seem to be looking for solutions to the power crisis.
How can we say we're inviting people to come and open business there if we don't have electricity? Electricity is a basic need. We need electricity.
After a meeting between the president, ministers and Eskom's management, it's been announced there won't be any more power cuts from Thursday. Matuba Mahlachi for Telesur in Johannesburg.
And with that story, we've come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also join us on social media. We are on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Instagram. For Telesur English, I am Estefania Bravo. Until next time.
Para mantenerme saludable, yo corro.
To keep myself healthy, I study.
Για να διατηρηθώ υγιής, τρέφομαι σωστά.